Welcome to this episode of the Brush and Soap and Blade Podcast, where we look forward to shaving every day.
Welcome to episode 101 of the Brush and Soap and Blade Podcast, where we look forward to shaving every day. My name is Rick DeWeese. I'll be your host this week. Okay, so we're going to have a couple of emails, got two of them. I give some new shaver advice. If you've never listened to the show, you might not have ever heard this. So we'll throw it out there and see what happens. Talk about a shave of the day and, well, a nick in time. And then fire one. Then we'll throw in another shave of the day, and then we'll end up with fire two. You'll have to listen to hear what that's all about, but there you go. So anyhow, that's kind of the show this week. Let's get on with this thing. Hey, Rick, this is my first time writing to you, and it has been long overdue. Before I get on topic, I would like to say thank you for all you do for the shaving community. I've been wet shaving for a year now. My stumble down the rabbit hole is quite unique. A year ago, almost exactly, I was admitted to the hospital. My appendix ruptured at age 35, and I found myself in a hospital bed, unshaven, for a little less than a week. I won't go too deep into the story, but upon release, I needed a shave desperately. I bought one of those 5-blade razors and was shocked at the price. I usually bought a box of disposable razors at BJ's Wholesale Club, and that would last 6 months or so and cost around $30. But this was almost the same price for a lot less product. Long story short, I got a pretty good shave, but knew there had to be a way to get just as good or better shave for less. My search led me to wet shaving, and the rest is history. But during my journey into wet shaving, I have found that ignorance and convenience, can be costly. In episode 96, I was listening to your Alum block story and was taken back to the purchase of my first Alum block. I recall that I saw some reviews on Alum blocks on YouTube and knew I needed this stuff. I purchased a Taylor's of Old Bond Street block of Alum. It cost me around $17. After some time, I realized that I had overpaid pretty bad. When I heard you speak on Osma and that you paid around $9, it made me laugh a bit, as I was reminded how I got suckered. A person can easily overpay for an item when they don't do research. Now, I'm not too frugal by any means. However, I, like probably all of us, hate overpaying or buying poor quality products. But I discovered an Alum block that blew me away in price, quality, and quantity and felt I must share. Crystal deodorant. That's right, deodorant. Crystal deodorant is a big Alum block that normally you rub on your pits. Some of my family members have been using it for a while. When I saw this deodorant stick, I quickly knew it was Alum. Razor Rock makes an Alum block in the same fashion, however, much smaller. This block of Alum is huge comparably. I have been using this Alum now for a few months since it's easier to apply without dropping, and the best part is the price. The Alum can be acquired for less than $7 at your local CVS, Rite Aid, or Duane & Reade. So, I hope this is new information. I attached some pictures for reference. Thanks again for all you do. Sincerely, Edwin, a.k.a. the Boar and Again Shaver. Follow him on Instagram. Okay, first off, Edwin, great advice. I had not heard of that. So it's a great tip, and an Alum block is Alum is Alum, and whatever you get it in, as long as it's pure, you will probably not have any issues. It's also interesting the convenience of the crystal deodorant stick. It looks like it'd be easy to keep your hands on it and everything else, and not drop it or anything. So good stuff. Yeah, great tip. Oh, and I absolutely love the moniker Boar and Again Shaver. So it's like Born Again Shaver. It's great stuff. I mean, very, very inventive. Do like that. And from what I understand, Edwin is working on a line of brushes. So I'll be checking into that later maybe, and hopefully.
and we'll see what he has, and we'll tell you all about it. Now, as far as the other issue, poor quality products, you're absolutely right. When you buy poor quality products, you end up buying it 2, 3, and 4 times. It really does pay to buy once, even if it is a little bit more expensive, or sometimes even a lot more expensive at the outset. Sometimes saving your money to get something that is really, really good quality is well worth it in the end, and actually ends up saving you money. So it is something to think about. You can buy something inexpensively, but you will probably end up, as many of us have, buying it 3 and 4 times. A classic one that I've always run into is barbecue grills. I have friends that have the little barbecue grills, that have kind of the flat propane burners in them and the lava rock and everything. And they usually last, a couple of seasons, and then, because they don't keep them clean and the grease drips down in them and things rust up, and it's just, it gets nasty, and there you go. And usually after about 2 or 3 seasons, they're gone. I've got a Weber, and it was expensive, I will admit, but I have had that Weber outside. And the last one that I had lasted me, right just shy of 18 years. And then, the handles broke and some of the other things broke on it, and it was just time. It really was. Now, the one that I have now, I've had for, I think, close to 15 years, or maybe 16. But it sits outside all the time, and every time I turn it on, it just works. Now, I could have paid $200 or $250 for a gas grill, or even, $199, $200 somewhere in there. But I probably would have bought, by this time, 5 of them. Now, I did pay a good chunk of money for the Weber, but not as much as 5 or 6 grills, at $200 a pop. So in the long run, I save money. The only problem with buying quality is you end up having to pay the amount up front. Sometimes that's difficult. Sometimes you need to sit down and say, okay, do I really want this? And let's go ahead and wait for a little bit. Save up the change and get it once and get quality. So, Edwin, thank you very much for the email. I also got a quick email from Matt, and he said, just for your information, I use an RSS feed with G-Potter. Don't remember how I found it, but I had to do it twice since you changed providers. I'm sure I'm not the only one who uses it, so it's not uncommon. I use Linux and won't give iTunes the time of day. Okay, so I have tried on my free WordPress site to put a decent RSS feed link in there, and can't figure out how to do it. I'm challenged tonight, apparently. I'll keep looking around and see what I can do. But if anybody needs an RSS feed, just drop me a line at BrushnSoapnBlade@gmail.com, and I can send you the RSS feed, and you'll get, back to show, 48, I think it is. Before that, it was over at Podcast Garden, and they're still up and running, but you can also go to BrushnSoapnBlade.wordpress.com and get most of the episodes, or at least get the links to the episodes, and listen to them that way. So, as always, I appreciate you guys out there being patient with me in the multiple ways that we have to listen to this podcast, and I appreciate you using each and every one of them, to do exactly that. So, Matt, thank you very much for the email. Okay, so let's say you're a new listener, a new shaver, a new wet shaver, even. Where do you start? Where do you begin? Okay, probably the first place that I would suggest beginning is with a double-edged or a single-edged razor. Whether the single-edged is an old classic single-edge or an injector, but I'd start there. I'd start with the razor, because the razor, to me, is the heart of the matter. Now, you can go with the soap and brush, and you can use a cartridge razor. Yes, you can do that. And that'll give you some benefits. But quite honestly, you'll get a better shave with the double-edged or the single-edged razor than you will with a multi-blade razor. And I believe, this is just my belief, that there's more of a technique, ladder to climb. And so if you don't want to change everything all at once, because if you change everything all at once, okay, what variable is it that's causing you issues? Are you applying too much pressure, or is it that your soap is, your lather is just a bit skimpy and it's not gliding properly? And so you're skipping, which one is it? Well, you don't know. So I would start with one or the other, but, either soap and brush or the razor. But I would tend, I think, if I was training somebody, if I was teaching somebody, if I was handing a razor and a blade to a kid or something like that and saying, okay, let's start off slow here. And if they had a history, if you will, of previous experience with cartridge razors and goo in a can, well, using goo in a can for a little bit longer is not necessarily horrendous. It's not great, but it's not horrendous. To me, this is just my opinion. To me, the biggest hurdle, I think, is the varying degrees of pressure and the angles and everything. Not that it's hard, but it's just different. It's different going from a cartridge razor to a single-edged or a double-edged razor. And it's something that you need to pay more attention to. And I think that it's easier to pay more attention to it if you don't have to then struggle, with soap and brush and figure out how to do that and learn how to do that. So I'd probably suggest going the route of the razor first. And then at a later date, move into soaps or creams and brushes. Now, as far as brushes, I don't know which one's best. Synthetics are nice, boars are nice, badgers are nice. I mean, they're all nice. But I don't know. I would probably suggest going with creams first, because then you don't have to worry about loading and all this other stuff, Just creams make it easy. But that's where I would start, and concentrate on the amount of pressure. What I find is that in the first couple of passes, I go very light. It's relatively light pressure. And then in the last pass and in cleanup passes, I usually do, just a little bit more pressure. And it's usually in just certain areas that because of the grain or whatever, it's just more difficult for me to get to, for me to reach, for me to move the razor in the direction that it needs to go. And so I don't know. That's probably where I would start. And you can find, like I've said before, you can find razors that are inexpensive. Now, you can get into the game pretty cheap, and that's not a bad thing. And don't forget the injectors, because the injectors are really, they're not looked at a whole lot. It's almost like they're looked at, it's an old razor, but it's not the butterfly opening or the 3-piece, it's not the classic Gillette or, something like that. Or it doesn't look old, or it doesn't look really old. Those old injectors, I'm here to tell you, I am exceedingly impressed by them. They really marvelous inventions. Truly marvelous inventions. It just amazes me every time that we went from that to a multi-bladed cartridge razor. It's really is amazing. It's kind of like I say about BMWs. BMW will ride as good as a Honda Goldwing. It's just the Honda Goldwing takes 2 more cylinders to get the same job done. Now, you got to understand, I am a classic BMW owner, and so the old air-cooled twin is a phenomenal bike, and I've got, well, a bunch of miles on it. And I used to give my brethren in the Goldwing community a hard time because, well, for the same kind of ride quality and smoothness back in the day, I don't know what it is now, but back in the day, they had to have another 2 cylinders and, well, a little bit of water cooling. And so I always used to give them a hard time for that. But, it's kind of the same thing with razors. Back in the day, the old single edge or double edge razors give just as good a shave as those multi-bladed cartridges. And again, you got to wonder, who's winning here? Anyhow, that's where I'd begin. I'd begin with the razor. And there's a lot of good razors out there. There's a lot of good choices out there. And so far, I've been real happy with all of my injector razors. I've only found one, and it had a bad handle on it. It's the only one, and it was really more the handle's fault than it was anything else that it didn't shave really well. I may have to take a look at it again and see if I can tune it, see if I can fix it and tune it, and, well, just make it a little better. Anyhow, that would be my suggestion. Start with the razor first. So the shave of the day today was I don't know, it was fairly quick, but I had to be careful in one spot because, like I said, the other day I caught myself with the straight razor, and over the course of the last couple of days, be sitting in a chair and scratch my cheek or something like that just because it itches, and next thing I know, I'm bleeding because I have knocked the scab off that one little, I called it a nick. It was actually more of a cut, apparently. At least in one spot. It's like, well, dang it. So I have to be careful going over that area. But quite honestly, I was still able to achieve with a straight razor a very smooth shave in that area with no additional abrasions or cutting or anything like that. So that was good. But it does bring you to the, it does remind you to be gentle. It does remind you to be, well, careful and rather meticulous in your movements. Because, an injury, a pre-existing injury or whatever can, well, you don't want to open it back up. You don't want to make it worse. You don't want to slow the healing process down any. It's just, you want to shave and go on with life. So anyhow, that's what we did. We cleaned up again with the PAL Micromatic, just again because it's got a good blade in it and it does a great job. And it is amazing. It is absolutely amazing. Straight razors do an excellent job. And, I understand the convenience. And then the injector was really a jump. It's a much stiffer blade and it does a very nice job. Granted, it is single edge, but still it's a good razor. And, it's interesting. You've got the one Kickstarter that is going on, that's up to about 57,000 last time I looked the other night. And, people are, someone's making an injector and, that's interesting and actually pretty good for what you're getting. I think I may get one. I'm still kind of on the fence, but I'm kind of leaning over toward that side of the fence anyhow. I may jump on there. Like I said, I enjoy Kickstarters. I really do. It does fill a need. I mean, it fills a need for the consumer because you can find stuff that's inventive and new and, things like that. Yeah, granted, I've run into things, that I bought on Kickstarter that then went and, were being made and sold cheaper, but that's okay because the whole idea of a Kickstarter is helping the company get off the ground, help the idea, make it. So I'm okay paying a little bit extra. It's not a big deal. It doesn't upset me. I know there are some people out there that get really upset about stuff like that, but hey, it's kind of like being a venture capitalist, except, you don't have a return on that very, very slight investment in most cases. I mean, you're not talking about big bucks here. But anyhow, back to the shave of the day. So finished up with my single edge injector and ended up with a very nice shave. Nice and smooth and everything's good and ready for another day. Didn't use an aftershave today, just didn't feel it. Yeah, some days you just kind of go, eh. Now the shaving soap that I use, or shaving cream that I use, was Deluxe Shaving Lime. Now I previously used a lime from who was it? It was in a tube. It was a cream. Trumper, I think it was. Anyhow, the Deluxe Shaving cream lime is much milder in scent. In fact, it was almost too mild. It almost wasn't there. Great performing and everything like that, but the scent just wasn't there. Now, at the same time, it was also very gentle. So if you have any kind of reactions to lime scents, oils, or whatever, it may be an option for you. But I don't know. For me, I would have preferred my lime scent to be just a bit more. So, but all in all, I mean, it's still a great shave, and I'm leaning again toward that straight razor and then cleanup type shave. Been doing that for a while now, and it seems to be working very, very nicely and very well, and not too bad as long as I don't cut myself. But hey, we keep on going and do what we can do. So here's a good one for you. So it's Friday morning, and I'm getting ready for work and proceeding to shave. Have some spike lathered up. Mainly not because I like using spike 2 days in a row, but mainly because the cream coming out of the tube was a little stiff. And because it was a little stiff, it kind of stuck to the bottom of the old salsa bowl there. And in the process of getting one lather out of it, there was still a bunch of, spike cream stuck to the bottom of the bowl. So instead of, rinsing it out, washing it down the sink, I decided, we'll just go ahead and leave it in there, and I'll use it again tomorrow. So that's what I did today. So lathering up the spike, throwing the spike on the face, and I happened to be listening to, my podcast, just to, listen to it, make sure, just kind of double check audio levels and transitions and things like that, podcaster stuff. And I get to the segment where I'm talking about the weekend shave of the day and using straight razors and all, and it kind of coincides with yesterday. I tweeted something because yesterday morning at work was a rather strenuous, frustrating, just turmoil, if you will. Sometimes, I mean, they call it work for a reason. If they called it something else, you'd have to pay to get in. It's just so it's okay being, stressful every now and then they pay me, and that's good. I'm good with that arrangement. And, so anyhow, rather stressful events at work, and I recalled yesterday, and I tweeted about this. I took a break at one point in the morning because I was just frustrated and stressed, and things just weren't going well and all that. So I took a break, and at one point I'm in the bathroom washing my hands, and I look in the mirror. And I look in the mirror and I go, this ain't nothing. I shave with a dang straight razor. What they got? They ain't got squat, And it kind of reminded me of there's been a photo going around that you see every now and then of Robert Duvall with shaving cream on his face that, looks a little thick, but and a straight razor. And of course, the straight razor angle is, just miserable, and he would literally slice through his cheek and down to his teeth. But that's neither here nor there. The photograph is meant to convey the idea that, well, he's a badass. That he's a tough SOB, and, that's just the way it is. And that photo, just, the idea, anyhow, behind the photo just kind of flashed in my mind as I was looking in the mirror, and I was like, yeah, I shave with a straight razor. What do these people have that's going to upset me, frustrate me, or piss me off? They ain't got nothing. And so it was rather unique. And so, I'm sitting there, even in stressful times, reflecting on the fact that I shave with a straight razor, and I'm listening to the episode of the podcast, and this last episode, and I'm listening to it, and it's saying, yeah, I shave with a straight razor, it's going good, I'm getting a lot more confident, I rarely cut myself, and about that time, I nicked myself right below the sideburn on the left side. It's like, I was doing a cross-grain pass, and it's like, I just hooked it just right, and I'm like, crap. Damn it. Ow. So, you know what? That's what life is. Yep, that's kind of what life is. And, it's okay. It's all good. It brings you down from, your high, lofty perch on your pedestal, thinking you're all that, down to ground level quickly. So, like I said, anybody that tells you they're an expert at shaving, yeah, they're still gonna, ask them, okay, so you never cut yourself? So you never give yourself razor burn. So your technique is perfect. Yeah, so you throw on a little Illume and there's no sting. You throw on some alcohol-based aftershave and you don't even notice. Yeah, it's just like water. All the time? Right. Oh, goodness. Anyhow, it was an interesting reflection as I was shaving this morning, again with a straight razor, and, cleaned up with Pal, basically a rehash of yesterday's shave, because I had the soap. And I thought, well, if I'm going to do it all over again, I'll just use the same instruments and we'll go on with things. And so, again, nice shave of the day, very, very close, and all is good with the world, in spite of the slight nick that I have. It's not even that big. That's the thing, It's like, and it's not deep. It's just, just a nick. Okay, dang it. So yesterday I was playing around with my gas cans, and I bought something. Okay, I'll admit it. I bought something, and I don't know. I'm kind of a gadget guy. I like to just, I don't know, mess around with things, and I had an idea. I've got a swimming pool, and I want to extend the season just a little bit. And in order to do that, I need to just have something to, just kind of take the chill off of a pool. Because once it gets down to a certain temperature, it's almost not pleasant. It's not really refreshing. It's just not pleasant, especially in the fall. And so I was listening to something, and I thought, maybe I could do something like that. So I bought myself a piece of Army surplus equipment, and that piece of equipment is an M67 immersion heater. Now, what this thing is a gas, diesel, kerosene, fuel, waste oil, just pretty much whatever liquid will burn, heater that you put down in a tub of water, in this case being a galvanized 30-gallon can, and you can heat the water up. And like I said, there's no moving parts. And I wanted to give it a try because I thought, if I could run this thing for 4 to 6 hours, for example, and, just kind of pull the heat out through a coil or something, like a copper coil, and, pump the pool water through it and do it that way, that I could have a pool heater for very inexpensive, and one that's not, permanently plumbed in, one that I could take out, move in, and do what I wanted to with it, and carry on with life. So that's kind of the game plan. Well, I bought this thing, and I posted it up on one of the YouTube forums on one of the Facebook forums that I'm a member of, and showed some pictures, and somebody wanted to see a video, so I posted a video of it. So if you go to the YouTube channel, there's a video of the silly thing, but there's no moving parts in it. It's rather intriguing. They call them, I think in the Australian Army, they call them woofers, or something like that. Anyhow, they can get exciting if you don't use them correctly and don't let them function correctly, or get in a hurry, or don't do what you're supposed to do, because they will flare up and flash back and blow stacks off and just burn eyebrows and do all kinds of stuff. And it is exciting when it flares back. But the principle of this thing is it's basically a tube with a cast iron plate at a 45-degree angle down at the bottom. The cast iron plate has holes in it. And you drip fuel down this tube. It's a fairly big tube, and it's about a 2-inch diameter tube. And you drip fluid, gasoline or something, down this thing. And as it hits this plate, it kind of splashes and vaporizes and everything else. And then the ignition is down below it, because when you start this thing up, it burns just below this cast iron plate. And the place where it burns is in, well, what could be easily described as a steel donut. If you look down at the bottom, there's like this ring. It looks like a flattened steel donut, and the tubes, both the inlet and the outlet, are like right next to each other on one end, and inside the donut they're actually separated. So the only place for hot gases and flame to go is down into this thing, and then around that steel donut. And that steel donut is then immersed in water, and so everything that's burning and flaming and everything is underneath the water, heating it up. And then it comes up out the flue. So it's an interesting design, interesting principle. No moving parts, which is always a benefit. And so I got this thing, and of course, when you get something, it's just like everything, the first thing you want to do is, even before you really clean it up sometimes, is you want to go ahead and use it, see if it works, So I fired it up, and that's what I made the video with. And it does, in fact, work. It is exciting, though, because, I have played around with gasoline, well, a lot in my day, and know that it can be rather volatile and, it can be a tad explosive at times. So, having that good understanding of the dangers of vaporized fuel, it gets your attention. Anyhow, long story short, this thing does work, and there's a video up on YouTube. But long story short, I put some gas from one of my new gas cans in it, and in doing so, I had remarked the other day that part of the problem that I have with my gas cans is the little flexible plastic spout that's on the thing. I really couldn't aim and hold, and kind of wanted to flop around or just stick straight out, and it just wasn't very useful. Well, they just fit on the metal part, and so they come off easily. So I went ahead and took it off to fill the fuel tank on this thing. Worked like a champ. Holy cow! Easy to use, easy to pour, very nice. So that I'm not going to put that plastic piece back on, or if I do, I'll shorten it up or something. I don't know, but. Yeah, it was very, very nice. I enjoyed that. It worked, kind of as advertised, if you will, or as I remembered, or at least as it needs to be. Very impressive. It makes the gas can well worth the spout well worth having. It's good stuff. So I wanted to let you know about that, and kind of also tell you about my new little toy. And I'll clean it up this weekend, hopefully, if everything works out okay. And we'll get that going. And I don't know. I'm thinking if I can run it for like 4 hours or so in the daytime, that I can plumb water through it and run it for about 4 hours in the daytime. Take the chill off, so that in the evening when I've done for the day and want to just kind of kick back and relax, the pool will have just a bit of extra warmth to it that it normally would not have in the season. And so we'll see how it goes. What could possibly go wrong? It's just gasoline and fire. Come on, guys. So we're in the truck, got the sunglasses on. Beautiful day, but it's a little bright this morning because, it rained all night last night. And, there's something about sunshine coming off of a rain-covered ground, grass and stuff, it's glaring. And, So anyhow, let's talk about the shave of the day today. So the shave of the day today, yesterday I did something, and I went ahead and used a single edge, an old Star single edge razor. And I had a blade in it that I'd had around for a while. And so I got a good shave, but it wasn't a superb shave. So I wanted to just do something, because what I'm running into is I am finding that if I shave in the morning and I don't use a straight razor, my shaves are not as cleaned and smooth as what I want, what I desire. There's like spots that, there's just a general roughness, or there's spots or something like that. And so I put a new gem blade in my Star razor, and gem stainless steel. So I don't always use carbon steel. I really like carbon steel blades, though. So anyhow, I put the new stainless steel in the gem single edge razor, and proceeded to lather up some Soul Man that I had loaned to a buddy of mine. He'd used it for a while, brought it back, and said he liked it, but it wasn't necessarily for him, which is cool. I mean, that's why we test things, right? That's why we trade things around and donate things, and all that kind of stuff. So anyhow, went ahead and did that. Lather like you couldn't believe. I don't know if he did something to it while he had it or what, but I had enough. Now I did bloom the soap, but I had enough lather in that bowl from blooming, and we're talking maybe a 30-second load. It wasn't very long load time at all. I had enough lather for probably about 4 shaves there. It was incredible. The picture that I have up on the blog of today's shave of the day was after a 4-pass shave, essentially. So what did I do? So I went ahead and lathered up, and using the single-edged razor, went and did just a typical 3-pass shave. Now you're probably thinking to yourself, okay, so if you're doing a 4-pass shave, 3 passes with a single-edged razor, it's obvious that the single-edged razor doesn't give you a good enough shave. Well, it does. It's just my perspective on a good enough shave is, changed a little bit. There is a smoothness that is accomplishable, I guess is the word, with a straight razor that I have not been able to easily do with a single edged or a double edged for that matter. And it's kind of like the difference between those two and a cartridge. It's there's a notable difference in feel, and I don't have that with a straight. On my cheeks, for example. Now, underneath my jawline and, in my neck area, yeah, I do. I mean, I get that. The only way I can really clean that up decently is with a safety razor. But I still haven't figured out how to do that with a straight razor. I need to find somebody someday that can show me how to do that well. If you know, give me a call. I mean, I've tried, kind of moving my jaw around, stretching, sticking my jaw back into my chest. I've tried all that. It does okay, but, it's just, it's kind of like the cheek. It's a flat surface that you can, get and do well. And that's just not the same in the neck area. So, anyhow, back to the shave. Went ahead and did the 3-pass in my typical 3-pass orientations, which is the same way that I would do a 3-pass even if I was using, a straight razor. So I went ahead and did it with the safety razor. And then what I did, because, I had soap like you wouldn't believe. I mean, lather all over the place. But, I went ahead and picked up one of my straights and proceeded to clean up, if you will, with a straight, going against the grain. And I also did under my nose and found out that I wasn't getting as close as I thought under my nose with the single edge. And so now it's going to be curious, because now I'm going to do the same thing with a double edge and determine just what's going on. Is it truly that I can get closer with a straight razor and I can tell? And the way that I could tell is, when I was rinsing my face off, if I felt carefully on my cheek, there was just a little bit of grab, if you will, a little bit of kind of a sandpapery feel. It didn't really feel like stubble. It felt more like just a general roughness. The thing is that after the straight razor, BBS. So it's a curiosity. It's one of those things, because usually what I do is I will typically do 2 passes, and then the third pass is the against the grain pass to get everything as close as possible. And what I may end up doing is, instead of doing straight razor and then clean up with the safety, what I may do is do 2 passes with the safety and then clean up with the straight. It's just, it's interesting. The other thing that's interesting about it is that it didn't take really that much time. It took less than shaving with a straight razor completely, only because I didn't have to pay quite as much attention with the safety razors while I'm flailing around and doing the first couple of passes there. If you flail around with a straight razor, things can get dicey. Anyhow, so finish that up and walk out the door with a fantastic shave, and all is good with the world. And but it is curious. Which way do you go? Do you do the straight first and then safety, or do you do the safety first and then the straight? I don't know. Things that make you go, Yeah, I run into. I've been practicing my handwriting, and at work as I'm taking notes, and every now and then something will just come to mind, or something will happen. And one that I have that I posted up, so I sitting there and I got it on a little sticky, a little square sticky note. And it says, "Isn't it amazing that people get so upset about not having an agenda for a meeting? An agenda that they're not going to follow anyhow." It is rather amazing when you think about it, but it happens all the time. So, luckily, when I'm shaving anyhow, I have an agenda. The agenda is to get a clean shave in little effort and muss and fuss as possible. And this morning, I achieved that.
Okay, since we're talking about, fire, let's go ahead and talk about lighters. Now, as you probably know, I'm a scoutmaster, and as a scout, it's important that we know how to make fire. I have multiple sources and methods making fire, and usually have 2 or 3 different sources of fire or of making fire on me at any one given time. You never know when you'll run into one of my scouts and he'll ask me if I'm prepared. And so I kind of enjoy being able to show him that, yes, indeed, I am. Here and here and here, how about this and maybe this one and, like that. It's kind of funny to see the look on their face when you pull out 3 or 4 different ways of making fire, or 3 or 4 different ways of cutting something, or, lights or flashlights and, just all kinds of stuff. I have a lot of fun. So, one of the things that I would ask is if there's anybody out there that deals with kids, please, at a fairly young age, when they're young enough to not hurt themselves, of course, but at a fairly young age, teach them how to make a fire. It is absolutely amazing how many times I have been with adult males and standing around and watching them attempt to make a fire. Meanwhile, I know that I have, 11 and 12-year-old boys in my scout troop that could do it in about 2 minutes without matches, and think really not much of it. And it's not that they've had a whole lot of practice at it, but they have had some, and they've been taught the proper methods. And in fact, I like to talk about my oldest son. When he went to scout camp, one of the contests was to make a fire, and you had to burn a string. You had to get your fire big enough to burn a string. And some of the guys were saying things like, well, I could do this if I had matches. Well, I was standing a good bit back because it was his contest after all. It wasn't mine. And I recall him saying rather loudly, matches are for people who don't know what they're doing. And then he took a cotton ball, spread it out, took his striker, lit it almost, within the first couple of strikes, and had a nice little fire going. And he was 8 at the time, if I remember correctly, maybe 9, but, fairly young age. So it's not something that you have to be a teenager or, an adult to learn. You can teach this to anybody. So if you have the opportunity to teach a kid how to make a fire, whether it be with matches, a lighter, or a striker, please do so. Start them off with small stuff, tinder and things. And in fact, when I was working with Cub Scouts, one of the things that we would do is we would take the aluminum roasting pans, the fairly high side aluminum roasting pans, and we would sit out on the driveway and make small fires. You put a little bit of sand in them, and you just make small fires. Start cotton balls with a striker or with a match or something like that, and put some tinder on it, and make a small fire and have them practice that. Now, the other thing that's interesting is that kids nowadays, they don't know what to do with a match. They've never been shown. They don't know how to hold it. They don't know how to strike it. They don't know how to deal with it. And so that's something to watch out for. If you're teaching a young man, or a young woman for that matter, how to light something, do so if you can from time to time with matches, and show them the safe way to do that. Because the last thing you want in an emergency situation is to try to figure out what the heck to do with a match if you've never had one in your hands. Okay, so I can go on and on about this for a while, but the objective here is to talk about lighters. Now, specifically lighters that use lighter fluid, and I use the Rosinol fluid since it's just about everywhere. Now, I have 3 different types. I have had a Zippo lighter just about forever. I've had one in my pocket for just about as long as I've had a knife. In my day, having a Zippo and a pocket knife was normal for any 6th or 7th grader on up. It was just, it was accepted. That's just kind of the way it was. Now, the Zippo that I have now is a rather ornate thing with my initials engraved on it, and I've had it since, my Navy days. It still works like a charm, and the lid is not loose, mainly because I didn't get into those cool flick and light things that are really rough on the lids, when you see the guys taking them and, one-handing them and all this, where you flip the lid and it lights at the same time. And, okay, that's really rough on the lid of a Zippo, but it is kind of cool. Now, if you fill a Zippo up, it'll last about 2 to 3 weeks, and it's a reliable source of flame for that 2 to 3 weeks. It does dry up after this, but lasting that long really isn't bad.
It allows plenty of time to think about filling up the lighter, and I don't find it to be too much of a disadvantage or an annoyance, although some people do. I do find that I really, really like Zippos. First off, they're reliable, and the fact that you can hold them by their lids to light something is a big advantage. Now, if you ever have the opportunity, try holding a Zippo by the body or the lid and light it and hold it for about 45 seconds. And, well, then, get a Bic and light it and hold it for about 45 seconds. Tell me which one you prefer. I'm here to tell you the Bic will burn the snot out of your hands. And the Zippo just, it's hot around the flame, but the part you're holding isn't anywhere near it. So it's rather comfortable. It's no big deal at all. Now, the Zippo is a one-handed lighter, but it is a two-operation lighter. By that I mean that, first you have to open the lid and then you have to light the lighter. It's not a big deal, but if you use it a lot, it can be a little bit aggravating. Of course, this assumes you're not doing the Zippo flip and beating up the lid hinge. Now, I also have a small keychain lighter. This is a lot like the Zippo in that the mechanism is pretty much the same. It's got the little wheel that goes against the flint, and it strikes a little, like a cotton wick that is in a chamber that holds the lighter fluid with some batting or cotton or whatever that kind of helps keep it in place. And I've carried the thing for probably about 5 years. It's about the third the size of the Zippo, and it's very solidly made. It's made out of stainless steel, so it is a bit heavy. Now, the attachment point is a machine part of the lid, and the two halves are screwed together. It's solid. Now, it does have an O-ring. The Zippo does not have an O-ring, and I've always assumed that, without that kind of a good seal, that's one of the reasons that it dries out after about 2 to 3 weeks. Now, this little lighter, it does have an O-ring. And even though it has an O-ring, it seems that unless I stay on top of it, it dries up quickly. Not using this little guy for about 2 to 3 weeks is not out of the norm. And I find that when I need it, it's out of fluid. Yeah, it's my fault, but it fails the reliability test. Maybe if I sealed the cap around the O-ring with a bit of tape, but if I have to do that, what's the point of the O-ring? Now, the convenience factor is that it fits on my keychain, which is nice. It's fun, though, because when it does work, well, no one expects you to pull a lighter off your keychain. You're instantly a hero. Now, if it'll, just light. So it's kind of unique. I got it from a company called Countycom, and they make little offshoots. They make one in copper. They make one that's even smaller than the one that I have, and, it's okay. So between those two, I don't know. I like the convenience of the one on the keychain. I like the reliability of the Zippo and the fact that because it's there and because I kind of have it in my hands and play with it, I think about it and fill it up from time to time. So, yeah, I don't know, it's kind of a 50-50 balance. Now, upon reflection, there are better, much more reliable alternatives. And there are companies and individuals that make sleeves for the mini Bic that will allow it to be attached to a keychain. And this would be more reliable than the little, fluid lighter that I have. Now, you could probably do the same thing with duct tape and a paper clip, or duct tape and a piece of string. And in an emergency, you'd probably be the only one with duct tape or a paper clip as well. Now, I did this, and it works. It's one of those things. I took a paper clip and bent it in half, and then I kind of twisted it around so it would hold the little press tab on a Bic lighter in place so that it would never lose gas while it was in your keychain, in your pocket, or whatever. So it's a neat little life hack. And then I put a piece of tape around it to hold it in place. I put this on my key ring, and I carried this thing around for, 6 months? Yeah, it was probably about 6 months, and every time I needed it, I would, pull the thing off, and I would take the paper clip off, take the tape off, and, light it, and it worked great. Now, the only downside is that the tape that I used was just regular, cellophane tape, the clear stuff that tears real easily, and it wasn't real friendly to take it off and put it back on, and take it off, put it back on. So I replaced it with a piece of electrical tape, a little piece of black electrical tape, and that functioned a lot better. Now, is there a downside for this thing? Well, I thought at first that maybe the paper clip would break, or that it would loosen up or something. Okay. So it really didn't happen that way. Now, it is a little bit bigger than the little CountyCom lighter that I have, but it's lighter as well, so it's kind of a 50-50 thing. Now, of course, it is a Bic lighter, so if you light anything, it's going to have to get lit pretty fast, because you're not going to want to hold this thing for any length of time. The other advantage of butane lighters is that if it's really cold, they don't work well. The butane loses pressure, and if you don't have any gas, well, you don't have any fire. Now, one of the things that you can do is put it like in your pants pocket, where it's supposed to be, where your body warmth will actually keep it going, even when it's really cold outside. So it was designed really for lighting cigarettes, and quite honestly, for the short-term fire and everything, and, keeping it in your pocket and using it one hand and one motion, and it's pretty much lights up, and it's a really reliable lighter as long as you can keep the gas valve from getting, pushed down in your pocket and having the gas escape. Now, the latest lighter that I have is an IMCO lighter, or an Esbit lighter. And I purchased it to try because I didn't want a Bic, and I wanted something a bit smaller than the Zippo, and, it was just cool. Now, this little lighter fits the bill and has some advantages going for it as well. First off, it's smaller than the Zippo. It's about as thick and about as tall, but not as wide. Also, it's a little bit lighter than the Zippo. It's made out of thinner material, but there's a lot of, it's circular in some dimensions, and so it seems to be just as stiff and just as sturdy. It's just lighter. Now, it is a fluid lighter as opposed to the butane lighter, so it lights in the cold without any issues, and once lit, you don't have to hold the button down like the Bic. It's also a one-handed, one-operation lighter. Thumb down on the lever, and that's it. It's lit. You press your thumb down, and it opens it up, spins the wheel, and lights the lighter all in one motion. So it's nicer in that regard than the Bic. As an additional bonus, you can even take the tank and wick out and hold it like a little liquid fuel candle. So that's really handy when it comes to lighting a fire. All in all, I'm really, really impressed with this thing. I've had it for 6 or 8 months. And it will hold fuel for about 3 to 4 weeks, and which, considering it seems to be a little bit smaller in dimension than the fuel compartment or area of the Zippo, is really an incredible feat. So it's well put together. It's kind of sealed up so it doesn't evaporate as badly, I don't think, as the Zippo does. And overall, just does an absolutely excellent job. So I've been so impressed with it that it's become part of my pocket. And in fact, since I'm a Scoutmaster, I always have it. Remember, Scoutmaster, 2 to 3 ways to make fire at all times. So, there are many choices out there if you need portable fire in your pocket. And, you don't need to smoke. You just have to have a desire to make fire from time to time, which, I happen to do. I like fire. It's good stuff. So, anyhow, I'll throw some pictures of all these things up on my up on the blog, and so you can see what I'm talking about. But if you happen to be looking for a lighter in your pocket, as a Scoutmaster, and for one who has been caught in the dark on numerous occasions in buildings where, when the lights go out, it is pitch black. I find myself that for the last, 10 years, I have always carried a small flashlight, I have always carried a lighter, and I have always carried a knife. To the point where I even made a little leather holster for all 3 of them so they don't go kind of flopping around loose in my pocket. And so that has been an addition, and so finding a nice lighter for that pocket kit, if you will, has been, just really, really nice. So, that way I keep it around in my pocket. If I happen to leave my keys at my desk or whatever, I still have a way to make fire. All good stuff.
So, if you enjoy fire, take your time to, if you can, teach a young person how to deal with fire, how to make fire, how to put it out too. It's one thing to teach them how to build a fire. It's another one to teach them how a fire works, with the 3 points of the fire triangle, and sometimes more importantly, how to put them out. Such as, if you have a fire in the kitchen in a pot or a pan, sometimes the easiest thing to do is just put a lid on it. And you don't want to put water on a grease fire and things like that. Yet teach them how to be safe. One of the mysteries of fire is that, a lot of kids especially are under the impression that, well, you don't want to play with fire because it's terribly dangerous. Well, okay, it's like a tool. It's like a razor. Yeah, it can be dangerous if you don't use it appropriately. But if you do use it appropriately, it can do absolutely magnificent things. I mean, if you think for a second, how good a shave can you get with a straight razor? How dangerous can a straight razor truly be? Yeah, so it's like anything else. If you have the tool and you know how to use it properly, it can do wondrous and marvelous things in your life. If you don't know how to use it properly, it can be exceedingly dangerous. So, the way to get around that is to teach people how to use the tools properly. And one of the tools that, in my opinion, everyone needs to learn how to use properly is a good lighter, or matches, and how to build a fire. So anyhow, if you happen to have a young man or a young woman around, teach them how to make a fire. It'll pay them dividends long after you're forgotten about, when they're standing around and watching a bunch of adults try to figure out how to light a fire, and they can just sit there and laugh until they finally get fed up and walk over and do it in a minute or two.
Well, that concludes this episode of the Brush and Soap and Blade Podcast. I hope you enjoyed listening to it as much as I enjoyed making it. If you have some suggestions or would like a topic covered, drop me an email at BrushnSoapnBlade@gmail.com or give me a call at 864-372-6234 or contact us on Twitter at BrushnBlade. You can also visit us at our blog, BrushnSoapnBlade.wordpress.com. As always, we're available on iTunes and Stitcher.